It's not the circus of the SEC, but the ACC gets going with Media Day here this week, and let's break it all down. Jason Horowitz, glad to be with you here on CBSSports.com, and glad to have my partner who was with me in Birmingham last week, CBSSports.com's college football columnist Dennis Dodd, to break this down. And Dennis, the attention's not on the ACC like it was on the SEC. No conference will be like it was on the SEC. But when you look at the storylines this week that you're going to see there in Greensboro, what stands out to be as the biggest?
Well, I think the fact that, this ever since this conference expanded, it's tried to develop an identity, and it really hasn't. People expected Miami and Florida State to lead the charge. They haven't. Virginia Tech has won the last 2 titles, but I think a fantastic job done by Frank Beamer in his 20-plus years at the school, but not really a team that comes to the tip of your tongue when you talk about national powers. But, I think they're going to be right up there this year. So, and, possibly Clemson having a Heisman candidate and C.J. Spiller. Florida State, how are they going to cope after if and when the 14 wins are going to take away? They think they have a team that can win 10 games and win the league. So, again, a bit of up for grabs again in the ACC.
Dennis, that seemed to be the biggest off-season story in the ACC, was the Bobby Bowden situation and the school situation, whether or not they would lose those victories and the probation and all that stuff. Do you think that will overtake the couple of days there as well?
No, I don't. I mean, it'll be talked about, but I talked to quarterback Christian Ponder this week and Dakota Watson, one of their linebackers, and they said absolutely it's not infiltrated the locker room. In fact, Dakota Watson said the man's the nicest man I've ever met. I've only heard him cuss 5 or 6 times in 4 years at Florida State, and they said if Bobby says it's not going to matter, we don't believe it matters.
What about the team that, as you mentioned the won the ACC last year and then went on to the Orange Bowl and won the Orange Bowl as well, Virginia Tech? Like you said, always flying under the radar nationally. Better this year or worse?
I think it's the best team they've had since 2000, since Michael Vick's last year. They're loaded on defense. They've got the thing about Virginia Tech is they weren't too splashy on offense. They're going to be pretty splashy on offense this year. They've got Darren Evans, who was quite a surprise at tailback last year, ran for 11 touchdowns. Tyrod Taylor, the dual threat guy, the best difference-making quarterback I think they've had since Michael Vick. I'm not going to compare him to Michael Vick, but if he does not turn the ball over, they'll be really good. A big offensive line, so they're going to be fine. I think their whole season takes off or maybe goes the other way in that opener against Alabama. If they win that, then we're not just talking about the ACC because the schedule is favorable.
Yeah, and on top of that, let's not forget it. That's exactly what happened last year with Clemson losing that game, getting shut out, and they went the other direction and had a coach fired in the middle of the season. Dennis, we talked about Ole Miss as the flavor of the month. There at the SEC when we were there in Birmingham. Who are those flavors in Greensboro?
Well, I think one of them is definitely Georgia Tech. In Paul Johnson's first season, he won 9 games with an offense that people doubted a lot, the true triple option. He won 9, beat Georgia. Finished in the upper regions of that division. A lot of people think he can win the division this year with the likes of Jonathan Dwyer, who's a Heisman candidate, Josh Nesbitt at quarterback, and without really any recognizable receivers, which is what happens when you run the triple option. But you've got to defend that, the run threat so much that teams eventually sell out, and you can hit your receivers. You don't have to have game-breaking guys. So I think Paul Johnson proved a huge point to not only the ACC but the entire country.
Yeah, and no Calvin Johnson there either. A couple of the teams people are liking this year, North Carolina and North Carolina State. Dennis, real quickly, it's amazing we can go all through this entire thing and not talk about Miami. Is there reason to talk about Miami?
I think there's reason to talk about Miami, but I think the biggest story with them is they could be better this year. I think they could be much better, but they face a forced march, a Burma Road of their first 4 games. In the first 26 days, listen to this. At Florida State, we know that Labor Day night. 10 days later, Georgia Tech at home, at Virginia Tech, and then Oklahoma at home. There's a couple of issues there. One, playing all those teams, playing 3 conference games in a row to lead off the season. And then, number 2, all 4 of those stacked at the top. I mean, Miami could be 1-3 coming out of that and played some really good football. So, yesterday during the players' session, they were really spinning things like, we're going to have to play these guys anyway, and this is Miami football and blah, blah, blah. I can't think of another team in the country that's playing a schedule like this, at least to lead off. And they also play, the top two teams from the other division, Wake Forest and Clemson, as well as at North Carolina. So it's going to be tough.
Absolutely, for Randy Shannon's club. Dennis Dodd, thank you very much, sir. We'll talk to you as you continue your trip around the media days this week.
All right, thanks, Jason.
All right, folks, for more on the ACC, be sure to read what Dennis is writing out of Greensboro today and tomorrow. I'm Jason Horowitz for Dennis Dodd. Take care, folks.